how to make a slab box with a lid. In this video, I'm going to show you how I made this slab box out of clay. If you're getting clay straight from the factory, just cut yourself a nice thick chunk. You don't have to wedge it if it comes from the factory. And you're going to want to roll out a slab that is a 1/4 inch thick. You can do it this way, you can do it with a rolling pin, or with a slab roller. Make sure to get rid of the canvas texture on your slab. That should never be a part of a finished project. So just smooth it out with a kidney. I use a template to cut out my sides, just to make sure that they're all the same size. You're going to use a fettling knife to cut your slabs. Be sure to start cutting from the corner to save space on your slab. You'll need to use the extra remaining slab for your top and bottom. My box is going to have 4 sides and a top and bottom. You can easily make a 5-sided box or even 3-sided pyramid-shaped box. This extra slab will be used for the top and bottom, which I do not pre-cut. You cannot start building with your slabs wet, so you're going to need to dry them to leather hard before you put them together. You can either just let them sit out for a while, or you could dry them with a blow dryer. This has only been drying for a little bit, and you can see that it still bends easily, so this is not leather hard and it is not ready to be scored and slipped together. So I'm going to dry it a little bit longer with my blow dryer. Be sure to flip the sides without bending them so that both sides get dry. Leather hard is about half wet, half dry. If you see the corners start to get white, that's too dry. This piece bends very little, so it's leather hard and they're ready to be put together. Even though I cut them using the same template, they are slightly different in size, so I stack them on top of each other, and I'm going to use a rasp just to shave off any unevenness. Now, instead of assembling this slab box with a flat side to a flat side, I like to bevel my corners. You can see that if I did attach it this way, that one side of the box would be a 1/2 inch longer. It's also not enough surface area to score and slip and get a good connection. So instead of attaching it that way, I like to bevel the sides at a 45-degree angle so that each of my corners joins together to make a perfect 90-degree angle. You can cut the edges at a bevel with an X-Acto knife, but I like to use the rasp and just hold it at a 45-degree angle and shave it down to make that nice angle. So this will make the corners fit together perfectly, and it also provides more surface area to score and slip on. So I do that for each of my sides. I do not bevel the top and bottom. I keep those straight cuts. You can see that when you put it together, it's going to make a perfect 90-degree angle. Now I dip my serrated kidney in the slip so that I can score and slip at the same time. Be sure to score it really well and put a ton of slip on both pieces. When you push the sides together, you should have just a little bit of slip squishing out. That lets you know that you used enough. Give it a good push and then just smooth off the extra slip. That in itself might be an okay connection, but just to make sure that my sides and my corners aren't going to come apart, I'm going to take a fresh piece of clay, roll a really thin coil, and then smear a wet coil on the inside of the corner just to reinforce that scored and slipped connection. And I'm going to do that for every corner. I will blend it in quite a bit just to make it seem less apparent that it's there. So you want to smear it and smooth it into the clay and blend it in with the corner. You're going to repeat this process for all 4 corners. Each of the corners should have two 45-degree angles that come together to make a 90-degree angle, and all four of the inside of the corners should have a wet coil smeared on the inside to reinforce that connection and keep it from cracking. Now I do a little bit of smoothing just to get rid of that extra slip that came out of the corners. And instead of pre-cutting a top and bottom, which I think should be about 3 by 3 inches, but it never really is, I don't pre-cut and pre-measure. I just take my whole box and score and slip it to the extra slab. You can see that I cut about 1/8 of an inch around, and then I take that extra clay and just marry it up into the sides because that helps reinforce the connection as well. You're going to repeat this process for the bottom of the box. Marry that extra clay up into the sides. Right now this has a lot of tool marks. It has a lot of extra clay sticking out. It has a lot of cracks and bumps and imperfections. So next I'm going to spend about the next 20 to 30 minutes just smoothing and shaping. So far this is not a box with a lid. It is a closed form. I will be cutting the lid off with an X-Acto knife after I smooth it, but I like to use a combination of a paddle for shaping and then a rasp again for shaving down the sides to make them even and flat and symmetrical. I'll also use a loop tool sometimes, and a metal and a rubber kidney. And last I'll use a wet sponge just to get rid of all of the tool marks. But I do spend quite a bit of time just removing any imperfections. I've got my box on a banding wheel, you can see, so that it is easy for me to turn and flip without having to constantly pick up the box. But I make sure to smooth and file and rasp every side, even the bottom. If you cut the lid straight across all the way, the lid will tend to fall off and move on you. So you can either hold your X-Acto knife at a bevel when you're cutting it so it kind of fits like a cork, or I suggest making at least one variation up or down in the cut, which you'll see me do here. Just that little dip, and that way the lid has a place to fit into and is less likely to fall off. Now that I've marked it, you can cut your lid off with an X-Acto knife. You can make the line for the lid wavy or zigzag. Just don't make it too wavy or too zigzagged, because then it will shrink and maybe change shape on you in the kiln. So keep the line fairly simple. Now that I can see the inside, I know I've got some smoothing to do. So I'm going to spend the next few minutes just smoothing the inside and getting rid of those tool marks. When I fire it, I don't glaze the part where the lid and the base meet because that makes the lid a little slippery. But I will glaze the inside and the outside. I do encourage you all to add designs to your box, like some of these, by adding feet or glazed designs or slip designs, applique, a kind of fancy knob for your lid, or maybe some carved patterns. Thanks for watching.